Okay, this is about to be a major avalanche. Okay, just stay like this and we'll all be okay. Hi, welcome back to my channel. So I don't know what's going on here, but let's just ignore that for now. So this video is going to be a combination of like a bunch of things. So I have a really big book haul and this stack is just taking up most of the chair, so I'm kind of hanging on to the edge. But I have a book haul, and then first I need to explain why I have so many books right here. And then also I still need to talk about the books that I read in November and December, and then what I'm planning on reading in January. So this is just going to be a mix of a whole lot of different things. But first I need to talk about why I haven't been posting as much lately. I guess I'll start from the beginning. So at the beginning of December, I had the bright idea of opening an Etsy shop. So I saw a ton of ideas on there, like blind dates with books, and I love recommending books to people and also giving gifts and like wrapping gifts and stuff. So I was like, this will be like the perfect thing for me. I thought, because it's like a very, very like saturated market on Etsy. There's just like probably hundreds of blind dates with books sellers. So I got on there and, you know, I made up a couple books, decorated them, and I set my prices on Etsy like really low, like $10, like including shipping and the book and like hot chocolate, stickers, and like a pin. So I just wanted to get some sales, you know, so I could like join the market, and you know, the more sales you get, the more likely they are to like recommend you to other people. So I had my price super low, and I think on like December 6th at like 11 o'clock, I got 4 sales like back to back to back, and I was like freaking out. I ran downstairs and I was like, Mom, somebody bought 4 of my books, which is like insane, because I've tried to put stuff on Etsy before. Like I made some shelves and some like macrame things, and they would get like 0 views. So I was really like not expecting, you know, to get any sales, like especially after like the first couple of days. The next day I got like 20 sales, which was crazy. I was like freaking out about it. And I went to bed really early that night because I had an interview on Thursday. Uh-oh, we have a visitor. I don't think there's any room up here for you, sister. You're gonna have to sit on books. There's nowhere for you to sit. Okay, just sit right here. Say hello. She has caramel like in her hair. She like got a hold of some caramel popcorn somehow, and it's like all stuck around her face. Okay, thank you, ma'am. So yeah, I had an interview for a job that Thursday. So I went to bed really early, like turned off my phone or whatever, maybe took a sleeping pill so I could get some sleep, and got up really early and went to this interview. So I was away from my computer all day, and I like didn't check stuff in the morning because I was like so nervous. And I got on there after I got home from this interview. Okay, now she wants down. But I got on there after I got back from this interview, and I had gotten like 68 sales. And I don't want it to seem like I'm complaining, but I like panicked, like super panicked, because I was spending like an hour like wrapping each book. I'll like insert pictures here or whatever to show you, but I was spending a long time on these books, and I had my processing day like set from like 1 to 3 business days. So like I would need to send these books out within 3 days. And the sales kept coming, and I was like, oh my God. And on the morning of December 9th, I like shut it down. I was like, I don't know. I didn't even know what to do. I was like panicking. So I turned it off, and I had 137 sales that needed to be filled in like 48 hours basically. And I didn't even have enough books because I had like a lot of books that would fit the prompts and stuff, but I just was new to Etsy, and I was like, no way am I gonna sell out of all these books. So I put like a quantity of like 20 on each book genre, because I was like, I have plenty of books here, you know, that I'm wanting to get rid of and like rehome and all that stuff. Yeah, so I had 137 books. I was freaking out, and I had to go to like every single store to try to source these books from different genres. And let me tell you, there is literally like fantasy and sci-fi are nowhere to be found on the face of this earth in any thrift store or bookstore. Like it is so hard to find them, and I had such a hard time sourcing them. So I went to half-priced books. I have one of the best half-priced books like near me, and they just have like walls and walls of clearance books, and it's like really good books because they take like whatever they have like too many of, because this store is just like slammed with like so many books and trade-ins and stuff. So there will be like brand new books that they just have like such a high quantity of that they just have to like throw them on the clearance rack. So I was tearing up the clearance rack. I think I bought I bought like over 100 books and they were $2 a piece mainly. I did buy a few like because the fantasy and sci-fi were so hard to find. So I paid like full price for those, which still wasn't a lot. It was like $6 or $7. So it wasn't too bad, but I bought like, oh my gosh, so many books. And then I went to the different Goodwills and all the thrift stores, just trying to find as many books as I could. And I wish I would have taken pictures of my living room because it was just boxes of my books that I was like willing to get rid of and boxes from Half Priced and the Goodwill boxes. It was like the most insane thing. And my mom was like, what is going on here? I was freaking out. I was like panicking. I'm like, oh my God, should I just cancel all these orders? And then I was like, what if I can never have an Etsy store again? Do they have my social security number? What's gonna happen? Like, it's not that serious at all. Like if I hadn't have been able to fill the orders, but I was just like, I'm gonna ruin Christmas if I don't get these books out. So luckily I am unemployed. Luckily. So I had like, I was off, obviously I wasn't working. So I had like 3 days that I could just get these done. And I did not sleep for like over 48 hours. And I was like on the verge. Like if you've ever had this happen to you before, you know, like you can start to feel yourself like, okay, I'm about to have a mental breakdown. And yeah, so I just kind of like accepted the fact. I'm like, I cannot physically get these done in 2 days. So I slept. I was like, I have to sleep or like I'm not gonna recover from this. And some of the orders went out like 2 days late, but it was all fine. Everything worked out. But like my hands were like literally, like my fingertips were like bleeding from peeling so much tape and glue and wrapping. Like I'm pretty sure I am definitely gonna get arthritis in my hands at least 10 years earlier from what happened. And already my pointer finger is hurting. So yeah, hopefully it'll fix itself. But I had my mom helping, my sister helping, like this was crazy. So that's kind of why I haven't really posted that much in December, because it was absolute chaos for that like week. And I shut down the Etsy store and everything. I was like, I am gonna have to mentally recover from this. It was Christmas and yeah, it was just a lot was going on. So that is why I have so many books here, because during this whole process, I was like, hey, wait a second, I really like that book. I'm gonna keep it for myself. So there are a lot of books that I need to go through. But yeah, it was horrible when it was happening, just trying to get all the orders processed and everything. And the post office was so mad at me because I was shipping out like so many things a day and they were having to, you know, type it in on their computer and I was kind of holding up the line. Yeah, it was definitely like a learning experience because I got like a very good flow down of like very efficiently getting these books decorated, wrapped, you know, shipped off, because before I was spending like an hour like decorating each book, which is just like not sustainable, especially when you're selling these books. These books, I literally sold them for like 10 to like $12, and shipping was anywhere from like $3 to $5. And then the books themselves were anywhere from like $2 to $6 if they weren't like brand new books from my shelves. So I was definitely like losing money, like not even breaking even on like the cost of everything. I have like a ton of 5-star reviews. Everyone's been so kind and they're like, this is such good quality for how much it costs. And I'm like, yeah. So yeah, because I'm wanting to eventually do like fantasy boxes, like a fantasy book and like themed items around that, because I wanted to get a subscription for myself, like one of the Fairy Loot, or I think there's another like adult fantasy box, but they're like all sold out. So I was like, I am going to make an Etsy where I can like sell these fantasy boxes and just do it myself, because I know so many people would love to have those. So yeah, that's like the ultimate goal. I'm taking a little break now over the holidays, and my new job is starting next week. So yeah, I'll be opening the shop back up soon, but that's pretty much the story of what happened there. So now that I've explained that, let's get into all the wonderful books that I kept for myself. Okay, so the first book in this haul is Once Upon a Broken Heart, and oh my gosh, guys, I love this book. I'm like halfway through, so I didn't want to include it in the wrap up, so I'm like, I'll just include it at the beginning of this little haul. But this is so much fun. It's so much like Cinderella meets a sprinkle of like Ryzen from ACOTAR, but like in the best way. And there's just like little notes in here, and there's a gossip column. Let me try to find it really quick. This one's called The Daily Rumor, and it's just written so well. It's so witty and funny. It reminds me a lot of Bridgerton and like Lady Whistledown's column or whatever. And I need to admit something. I want to be a princess, okay? And I am not ashamed of it any longer. I've always wanted to be this like tom girl, or is it tomboy? Tomboy, tom girl, whatever, you know what I mean? I've always wanted to play it cool, but I am not ashamed to admit I love a princess fairy tale story, and I'm just eating this up. It's so much just like Cinderella, and you know, I'm going to admit to the world that I love it. This may not be for everybody, but so far it is so good. I'm so happy I picked it up. It's just such a fun read. I literally picked this up yesterday and I'm already on page like 204. This is pretty easy, like the words are pretty big and a lot of the chapters are just like gossip columns. So it's definitely a quick and really fun read. But yeah, I'm excited to finish this one. Okay, next up I found this one. It's called Thank You for Smoking, and it's supposed to be like a literary fiction satire of sort, like a social commentary. And I just love the title and the cover of this. I mean, who doesn't love a good menthol? Am I right? But it says this is about a guy who, I guess he works in like the tobacco industry, and he's like fighting the people who are trying to end smoking. So they're like trying to promote smoking. So I thought this sounded really fun. Okay, next up, I found this copy of Love in the Time of Cholera, and I had another copy of this book. Well, my sister had one and she kept it for herself, so I'm like, I just need to get a copy of this. And it's in really good condition, and it was like, I think it was on the clearance rack for like $1, so yeah, we got this. And then, oh, I also found this at Goodwill, People We Meet on Vacation, for $1.99. And I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I thought it was okay. It didn't seem like a romance to me. It was more like just like a literary fiction with like a sprinkle of kind of romance, but like the main focus was on the sister relationship. So I will probably give this a try. I know a lot of people say this one is like one of their favorites, so we'll see if it's different than Book Lovers. Next we have Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy, and if you watched my last video, I bought an advent calendar on Etsy, which I probably will not do again because I just wasn't really happy with what I got, and I don't know if it was worth the money. But I got this new copy of Jude the Obscure. I had an old one, and this one is a lot nicer, and I like the cover of it. It's really pretty. I also haven't read that yet, so it's on the TBR. I also got the Afterlives from that book box, and I just loved the cover of this and the little dog. And this is about a guy, he dies for a few minutes, and then he's revived, and he's like, I didn't see any gates or the gates of heaven or anything, or hear any voices. And then one day, a little while later, he like finally hears a mystery voice, and I guess it just kind of like takes us through that story. It says the Afterlives is a portrait of a marriage, a story of overlapping histories, and a journey outside of time and space. This story will haunt you in a good way. So I thought this sounded really good. And then we have a Larry McMurtry book, and this is called Bones Lake, a novel. I found this at Goodwill too, and I was like, hey, I know that author. I still have not read Lonesome Dove. I think I read like the first 40 or 50 pages, and then other stuff just kept jumping in front of it, and it's such a big book. Oh my gosh, it's like 800, 900 pages, and yeah, it's just intimidating for me. But I saw this one and I was like, okay, it's a lot shorter. Maybe I can read this one first and just read a little bit of McMurtry without having to dive into Lonesome Dove right now, because I'm in the middle of a ton of series, so I don't really want to pick up such a big book and like break up the series I'm reading. So yeah, that's this one. And then I also found these two at half-priced books for $2 a piece, I think, and it's Old Filth and The Man in the Wooden Hat, and I think these are like companion novels. It seems like these are kind of like a contemporary fictions, maybe a little bit of societal critique or so, but they have such high ratings and people are really raving about them on Goodreads, so I thought these would be good to add to my bookshelf. Next up, I found this at half-priced books, and it's F. Scott Fitzgerald's short stories. It's still wrapped. I need to unwrap this, but it's, oh my gosh, just look how gorgeous this is. And it was $4.99, and I was like, okay, I think I'll get it. And the back is really pretty. You can like see the light reflecting in it. But yeah, let me grab something to open this with. Okay, I don't even know what short stories are in here. Oh my gosh. This is so pretty. Like seriously, Half Price Books has like some of the best. I don't know if they like do their own books or something. It says Arcturus is like the brand of like the publisher. Oh wow, we have a ton of stories in this. Here's the list if you want to pause it and look. Yeah, man, there's a ton in here. Gosh, this is so nice. But yeah, I thought this would be really nice to have. It's like reflective. Okay. Next, we have a Dance of Thieves, and this is another kind of fantasy romance that's really popular recently. I started like the first chapter, I think like the first 30 pages. I have a bookmark in it already, but it was very much like world building info dumpy, and I'm in the middle of the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, and I'm like, there's a lot going on in my head right now, so like a new world building scenario is like not really what I wanted to get into right now. But the Once Upon a Broken Heart, that's like not world building at all. It's just like classical like fairy tale vibes. So I'm probably gonna get into this one after I finish the Mistborn series, just because it's there's a lot of information up front. We'll just say that. Okay, the end is in sight. I have like 7 more books. But I found these. This is just like a collection of some Hemingway books. We have A Farewell to Arms. I've read that one already. The Snows of Kilimanjaro, Green Hills of Africa, and A Movable Feast. So I thought these were a really great find, finding the set together. I think they were $1 a piece, so not too bad. And all of the covers match, which is really nice. So we got those, some nice classics to add to the shelves. And then I also found this little copy of The Stranger, which is like, this book is weirdly expensive on like Amazon for like such a tiny little baby book. And it's like, I don't want to pay like $10. So I'm like really tight when it comes to like certain books, like classics. I'm like, they've been around so long, they're still in print. I'm like, they should not be that expensive. But yeah. Okay. And then this was also in the Advent calendar, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. And I'm really excited to get into this because I saw that Anne and Charlotte had a little tiff over this, and Charlotte said that this was like horrible and like shouldn't be read or something. I have a feeling that's because of Charlotte. She's like very traditional Christian, like she was very devout. So I think this had a couple things like divorce and like family issues and things that wouldn't really be accepted in like 1800s Christian society. So I think that's why that she said that about this. So I'm excited to see what's in that. And then speaking of Charlotte, I got Villette, and I am so excited to get into this one. This is also one of the covers that is by Arcturus. And I just think these are so pretty the way they do them. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure what this one's about. It says, Villette, desperate to escape her unhappy past, Lucy Snow leaves England for the continent. What's the continent? And takes up the post of an English teacher at a girls' boarding school in the town of Villette. There, she battles with her own feelings of isolation and loneliness, not to mention unruly and flirtatious behavior of her students. However, an even greater challenge is the jealous watchfulness of her employer, Madame Beck, who sets out to disrupt the growing affection between Lucy and the fiery-tempered professor, Paul Emanuel. Ooh! This sounds honestly a lot like Jane Eyre, so this will be a fun read. Oh my gosh, the writing is tiny. Charlotte likes to write some long books. Okay. And then I found another Larry McMurtry book. This is Horsemen Pass By, and it's short too. So I was just thinking, maybe I can read this one. So this is again set in the West. Like, I think all of McMurtry's books are pretty much set in the Wild Wild West. But it says this is in the post-World War II West, and it is an ambitious political backdrop and depicts a realistic and unembellished vision of the past. So that sounds fun. We'll see what that's about. Finally, we have the last book in this little haul, which is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And this just sounded like such a great concept. So it says, Christopher John Francis Boone knows all the countries of the world and their capitals and every prime number up to 7,057. He relates well to animals but has no understanding of human emotions. He cannot stand to be touched and detests the color yellow. The improbable story of Christopher's quest to investigate the suspicious death of a neighborhood dog makes for one of the most captivating, unusual, and widely heralded novels in recent years. So it sounds like there's going to be some great representation in this, and there's also like little images and stuff and diagrams, which I think is just so cool. Got like prime numbers and things like that. So it seems like this is kind of a little bit interactive. We love a good graph. But yeah, so that is all the books. Now I can finally sit properly in this chair and not break my back. So now we need to go over what I read in November, December, and I think it was, let me get my phone. I like marked all the books I read. I think I'm sitting on it. Ugh. Okay, let's see what I read, people. I was literally just talking about the books I read for like 15 minutes and I forgot to hit record. Okay, so I read in the beginning of November, I read How to Sell a Haunted House by Brady Hendricks, I think is his name. And well, I didn't read it. I DNF'd it about halfway through. It was just like one of the most absurd, like thriller books I've read in such a long time. Like some crazy, crazy scene would happen, like very traumatic and like kind of graphic. And then you would just like cut scene and it'd be at Waffle House. And it felt like it was written for like a Netflix adaptation because like in a movie that would be funny. Like if you cut scene and it like shows Waffle House, like that'd be like, you know, you might get a laugh. But in a book, it like reads so weird. Like if you're reading it and it's not just like a cut scene, like so I just thought it was just very, I don't know, it was out there and it was too absurd for me to finish. I was like, okay, I've had enough of this, and I DNF'd it about halfway through. So yeah, I guess I won't give that one a rating. But then I got into the Mistborn series by Sanderson, and if you've seen my fantasy insane TBR list that I made like a couple videos ago, that's on there along with a bunch of other Sanderson books. But I got into that, and I finished the first two books of the series, The Final Empire and The Well of Ascension, I think it is. And I think I'm gonna give the first one, like so far they're like close to 5 stars. I don't know if I'm like all the way there at a 5-star yet, but it is definitely a really good series, and I love the world building and the magic system. Like Sanderson really created a magic system that makes sense and is like realistic as much as like a magic system can be, which I like. Also, I love the fact that Sanderson isn't afraid to actually like kill off characters and make crazy stuff happen. Like so many series, like just for instance, like ACOTAR, this is kind of a little bit spoilery, so like skip ahead to whatever time this is if you don't want to like hear any ACOTAR spoilers, but like every book someone would literally die and then just be brought back to life. So it's like death really has no consequence, but Sanderson is like, he's gonna kill somebody off and they might be an integral part of the story, but you're just gonna have to deal with it, and death is final. There's no coming back to life and all this crap that so many books like to pull. So I really do like that element of it, because during like the battle scenes and everything, I'm like, oh crap, like this person might really die. So I'm really enjoying those so far. I'm gonna start on the third book once I finish Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I'm gonna get back into that. I'm trying to like pace myself in the series because too often I will just like consume an entire series in like a week, and I think that makes me like burnt out, so I like don't enjoy the series as much. So I'm trying to pace it out a little bit. But yeah, I'm into that right now. And then I also read Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I also really liked. It was a completely different world magic system from anything I've seen Sanderson do before, and I think this was one of his secret projects, and I wish I had the physical copy of this book because it's just so gorgeous. But Tress of the Emerald Sea is kind of like a twist on the classic fairy tale of a prince going to save the princess, but this time it's the princess going to save the prince. And I just like love all of the cozy like fairy tale vibes of this, and it's set on the sea and you have like pirates, and it's just really fun. I didn't like the fact that a lot of like the villains in the story felt very like one-dimensional. Like I like a morally gray type villain who you can kind of like see what happened to them and like where they're coming from, but it just seemed very like fairy tale-esque. You know, the villain is just a villain. So I get why it was like that, but I like a little bit more spice when it comes to the villains. So I think that one is maybe like, it's a 4-star, I want to say, maybe. But yeah, what else did I read? Oh yeah, I read Iron Flame. I don't really want to talk about that too much because I feel like I've talked about it forever, but I enjoyed it. You know, it's just like reality TV. I'm going to eat it up. Is it a masterpiece? No. But am I gonna watch it? Yes. Finished that up, and that was a long book. And then I also reread The Night Circus. I think I read it so long ago, like in middle school, but I don't know if I ever actually got to the ending of it. So I reread that, and it was pretty good. I don't know if it like reaches 5-star level for me or not. And then I also read Starling House, which is a new release that my library had, and I really love that book, but I think it's because it is set in Kentucky. And have I already talked about this? I feel like I've talked about this already, but it's set in Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky, so all of the stuff that was being referenced in the book I like really related to. It seemed like a very well written depiction of poverty in Kentucky, like things that I don't think somebody who hadn't seen or experienced poverty would like write about. And I'm pretty sure Alex Harrow is from Kentucky, so I'm sure she's seen this, but just the fact of like always being cold during the winter, like never having a really nice coat and clothes to wear, and not being able to go to the dentist, which I feel like a lot of people don't think about. You know, if you have a cavity, you kind of have to deal with it. That's written about in there, which I thought was done really well. Overall, I thought it was a really great standalone fantasy. I can't remember though if it was a 4 or if I rated it a 4 or 5 star. I don't know. I feel like I go back every like couple of weeks on my Goodreads and just like readjust everything because I'm like, I have to move things around, and I'm like so easily influenced that I really need to rate stuff before I like read other reviews, because then I'll just be like, yeah, you know, you're right, you're right. So yeah, I think that is pretty much everything I've read since then. I haven't really read a whole lot just because it's been so busy with like Thanksgiving and the holidays and all that. Let me double check. There's something else, I just can't think of it. But I guess that will be for another video. So I think that pretty much wraps everything up. I guess my TBR for January is pretty much like the things I talked about in here. And then also I need to finish Mistborn series, and I'm going to get into the Stormlight Archives. I'm kind of on a little Sanderson kick right now. So I'm gonna get into those. And also I really want to pick up the Malazan series, and I know that's very world building heavy, so I think I'm gonna really have to like dedicate a chunk of time to read those books. I think there's a lot of them. But yeah, that's kind of my reading plans. And I think for 2023 I read 54 books ish, I think. Somewhere around there, which is crazy. I've never read that many in a year, and I think a lot of that came from when I did like the 24-hour readathons, and I'd read like 3 or 4 books in one day, which was a lot, or like the week readathons. I would get a lot of those knocked out. So yeah, hopefully next year I can read maybe 60 books. That would be crazy. Over 1 book a week would be a good goal. So I think that's pretty much gonna wrap up this video. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching. I hope you had a good Christmas, and I hope you have a happy new year.